Seguin, Texas. Named in honor of Juan Seguin, an early supporter of the Republic of Texas, it's one of the oldest towns in Texas, founded just 16 months after the Texas Revolution began. The frontier settlement was the cradle for the Texas Rangers and home to the celebrated Captain Jack Hayes, perhaps the most famous Ranger of all. Grown out of the Texas Revolution, you might expect to find some colorful history in Seguin, and today we're going to find it.
Texas is full of lost history, from lost cemeteries to abandoned buildings, from the infamous to the obscure. Hitch a ride and travel across the Lone Star State, looking for hints of Texas' colorful past, our lost history. This is Expedition Texas, and we're gonna find it.
As one of the oldest towns in Texas, you'd think Seguin would be loaded with history. And you'd be right. Coming up later, we're exploring the Magnolia Hotel there, but first, we're getting our start downtown. The Mandel Building, built in 1890, was a retail shop on the first floor and the Klein Opera House on the second. It's the location of the first moving picture to be shown in Seguin. The building has been vacant since the early 2000s. In the 1940s, its facade was redone to mid-century modern, but some of the turn-of-the-century elements were kept, like the transom windows. We start our trip to Seguin there to meet with members of the Seguin Art League, a group who purchased the building in 2014 with hopes of bringing it back to its former glory.
The building was constructed in 1890, so in the 130 years, it stood up pretty well.
To begin with, it was the second floor was an opera house. When the opera house closed down, it became Seguin's first movie theater. Most of its life, it's been a retail or mercantile environment, but this building has lots of stories to tell.
The contractor that built the building had a daughter named Lizzie, who was an opera singer. She was a very young opera singer. So that must have been an interesting arrangement for the person that paid for the construction to also accommodate an opera house for the contractor's daughter.
Hi, Joe, Liz, how are y'all?
Glad to meet you, Bob.
Good to see you.
Hello, Bob. We're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. So I'm in a space right now that looks kind of like an old store down here, but that's not what it originally was.
Actually, the bottom floor was a hardware store to begin with. And then,
the beginning, okay.
Yes, and then it had a brewery and a bakery at the rear.
Okay.
The opera house is actually on the second level.
Really?
Yes.
Now I'm noticing the stamp tin ceilings up here, and in places they're missing and there's wood underneath. Now which one is original to the building, from the original building?
It's a beautiful beadboard, alternate pattern, wood ceiling. And
Okay.
so the tin roof was put in the 1940s.
Okay.
And it's going to survive in the new project.
That's great. So, and then upstairs, has any work really begun there?
No.
So we're going to get to see some original, untapped space up there.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Glad to
show
show
me
you.
the way. Let's go.
All
Good.
right.
Well, those stairs were a little spooky.
They've been severely damaged by a water leak above, and they're not safe for
Yeah, I know.
use. These will be removed, and we'll put in a new modern staircase that meets all of the code requirements.
Right, and doesn't have all those soft spaces that we
Right.
hit. Yeah.
Yes. And you won't have to hold on to anyone when they come up.
All right. Well, I was making sure you didn't fall through,
Thank you.
because if you fall through, I want to go too, so that's why I had you hold on to me, right?
One of the unique features of this space is that it's free span. So this is 50 feet without any column supports, which tells you how significant the roof framing and the trusses were for the day.
You know, I didn't think about that. We're putting a lot of trust in those right now.
Absolutely, and unfortunately the rain has damaged the ends of the trusses, and we're going to have to repair about 15 feet from each end to restore them. But otherwise they're in great shape.
I love the curves around the edges of the ceiling here. What was the purpose of that? Was that acoustic?
It's acoustic, but it also is a feature that we're going to keep because it ties the walls, the high walls, into a very fabulous beadboard ceiling.
So, Joe, what are the plans for this place? I know that there's a lot of fundraising that has to happen. Is this something that's a reality for Seguin?
The community understands that Seguin needs to be experienced through the arts. So this project is going to be realistic in determining that anchor for creativity.
And I know there's got to be a way, if folks want to help restore this awesome building, how can people find out how to help?
You can contact us through our website, SeguinArtLeague.com, or you can email me, SeguinArtLeague@yahoo.com.
Well, we would love to see that happen for y'all. Thanks for showing us around. Coming up next, we head across town to explore the historic Magnolia Hotel. We're in Seguin, Texas. We've just explored an old downtown building set for restoration. Next, we head to a place where restoration has begun, but where much of the original features remain. The Magnolia Hotel sat unoccupied for decades. That's until Jim and Aaron Getty found it, bought it, and started working to bring it back to life.
Well, the first time we opened the door, we were a little bit overwhelmed. It was like a hoarder's home, half your waist high and full of paper, trash, furniture, just various things. So we were a little overwhelmed, but we saw the potential. So we knew that we could get something done. Aaron and I had been looking for a project, and so this called us and we found it.
And a place that boasts so much history must have some great stories to tell.
Well, it actually began as a two-room log cabin, and it was built by the actual co-founder here of Seguin. He was a Texas Ranger, James Campbell. And he didn't get to live in this house for very long because on his way to San Antonio, he was actually ambushed by Comanches and he was killed. And the other Texas Ranger found them and buried him right where he lay. And then after that, they sold the log cabin and they turned it into a stagecoach stop. And at this time, they built the original Magnolia Hotel in the back. It's a three-room hotel made completely out of solid limecrete. And then around 1850, Mr. and Mrs. Dr. Reed, they came in and they bought the plot and the buildings, and they added the two-story wood frame and turned it into one of the most elegant hotels here in Texas.
And down through the years, the hotel has been owned by many prominent people.
Surveyors and in charge of the routes for the stagecoach, and we actually had a very incredible family called the Calverts, and the Calverts had a daughter who happened to fall in love with one of the most famous Texas Rangers of all. His name was John Jack Coffee Hayes. They fell in love and they actually got married right in the original Magnolia Hotel in the back. And we heard that it was a very large wedding with all the other Texas Rangers there. And then it became just an amazing stagecoach stop, and they served breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the dining room. And one of the daughter of Governor Ireland actually ran the hotel with her husband, so he was here quite often. And he was even, when the railroad came to town, he gave his speech out on the balcony, and that was a pretty big event, so much so that they had an exquisite party here, and they actually had plates made just for the event.
The Magnolia Hotel held a few secrets, though, and some of those weren't discovered until the Gettys came and took over.
They told us there was a basement down there and there was an old crank tool to get down below, so we came down here, and again, it was filled with trash, so we really didn't realize what was here. But we talked with them and they told us that this was hand dug back in the 1800s before the last Indian raid. And this was originally a two-room log cabin, so they had to spend a lot of time digging that out to prepare for these raids. It's just amazing when you go down there and look, because you can still see the old timbers from the structure. They're 90 feet long, they still have the bark on them. So this was the original material. So the bones of this building are solid, really solid, even though it's 170 years old.
The original Alamo bell hung outside of the building. for 50 years, until the Daughters of the Republic of Texas discovered it and they wanted it back, for which it's now back in the Alamo. And she was telling us all these stories right before we even entered the door, so we were completely fascinated before we even walked through the door. But you could tell that, as Jim says, that the bones of the building were really strong, but you could just tell it just needed some TLC. And well, we found out it was a lot of TLC, but the history behind it was just so amazing. You know, with her telling us there's an Indian raid shelter built by a Texas Ranger, and Jim and I could see when we walked in, because a lot of the walls were, had holes in them and everything, you could see the construction of it was just so incredible. So it was something we wanted to really save. It was just beautiful, and the wood flooring. We could see underneath it. It was horrible, but once we started doing the work on it, it's beautiful. So I just think it was the history calling us.
I know all about that. History calls me all over Texas to look for things like the Magnolia Hotel. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
How are you, Jim?
I'm Jim.
Hey, Jim, nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Erin.
Erin, so owners of the Magnolia Hotel in Seguin, Texas. How in the world do two people come to own such an awesome piece of history?
Oh, goodness. Well, we actually were doing some research on a book that we were writing, and we discovered that one of the characters actually lived at the Magnolia Hotel, so we went looking for it.
A character in a book, so you were writing a book, and one of the characters lived here?
They actually stayed here. They
Really?
stayed here, and so we went looking for it, and when we did some research, we couldn't find it, except that we found a little YouTube video, and it said that the house had just been placed on the top 10 most endangered places in Texas.
Sounds like our kind of place, and coming up next, we explore the Magnolia Hotel in Seguin, Texas. We're in Seguin, Texas. So far, we've explored a historic downtown building and learned about the Magnolia Hotel. We've trekked across town to the Magnolia to explore the mysteries hidden behind these walls. With history dating back to the Texas Revolution, you can imagine there's so much to be found. We've stopped in to visit with the owners, Erin and Jim Getty.
This building was not accessed by the public of Seguin for more than 70 years. It was in private hands, so you couldn't come in as a hotel until after we bought it, and we opened it up for everybody to come see it.
And it was empty for 20 years. Even there's a lot of the locals that they had no idea that this building actually had so much history in it.
Looking around the house, I see that there's a lot of antiques, a lot of artifacts from back in the day, but the upstairs is unrestored. So let's start out down here, kind of give us an idea of what things were like at the Magnolia Hotel, and then we'll work our way up to that unrestored second floor. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, great. Which way?
This way. Well, you're actually walking into the other half of the log cabin, and they later turned it into a stagecoach station, but it's mostly known for being the ballroom. This was actually the hub of Seguin in the 1840s and 50s.
Are any of these items things that you found in the house when you came here?
Yes, most of the stuff you see in here we did find. There's only one piece of article that we was actually just planted on our porch, which is the organ. We came one day and it had been donated. So, but everything else you see, we found here at the hotel. Well, now you're actually entering the 1850 portion of the hotel, and this was known as a bar. This was the original bar.
Really? And it kind of has a kitchen feel now. Was that always the case?
Well, we wanted to turn it back into the original way of being the bar, but then we decided to go through the 1930 look after they turned it into their home on the bottom.
Okay, so this is kind of more of the home.
The way we have it decorated, this is the home appearance of it, yes.
Okay, when it was a bar, what would have been different about this room?
This whole square area would not have been here, so it would have been opened up all the way. But they had actually turned it into a pantry and a laundry room, so it now supports the second house, so we had to keep it. So you're actually standing in what we call the children's room, but it actually is the back portion of the hotel. You can actually see the columns that we discovered when we tore down all of the wallpaper and paneling, and you can see the columns as well. It looks exactly like it does in the front door.
So those was this little indention, these little storage shelves there when you took the wallpaper off?
When we took the wallpaper off, this was actually a hidden door. We took the wall down and we discovered the shelves and the column, and then we knew that there had to be more columns up here, so we actually cut it away, and there it is. And we decided to leave it so you can actually see it.
And you find this molded, awesome looking column there just hidden behind decades of closed off wall.
Yes, it was so fascinating. It gave proof that this indeed was the back porch and that was the back door. So you're actually still in the other portion of the porch, but this is one of the items that we found here at the hotel.
This was here when you came?
Sure was.
It even survived through all the family owning it and all that. This was here.
This was here.
Oh my gosh. I'm afraid to touch it, but can I?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
They even got a phone in there.
Look at that. Wow. And what is this room?
Well, this room is actually the 1850 dining room where they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. But I'd like to show you something special. And it's through this door right here. This is an area of the hotel that we do not open to the public, but you're actually standing in the original Magnolia Hotel, built in 1846. It was a 3-room hotel.
This was one of the original 1846 hotel rooms.
Yes, it was. It's one of 3 rooms. Each room had a fireplace and provisions for overnight stay.
This looks a little homey, though.
We've made it a little more homey for us.
Yes.
You live here?
We live here.
With the ghosts?
With the ghosts. They're like family.
Okay. As long as that's a good thing.
It is.
Okay. So I understand that you've restored much of the bottom floor, but you haven't really started on the top floor yet.
Not yet.
Can we see that?
Most definitely.
All right, I'm following you.
All right, let's go.
What's this bell for?
That bell was actually used during Prohibition.
What? You're kidding.
Whenever they're going to have a raid, they ring the bell and everybody hightailed it.
If you're not following Expedition Texas on Facebook, you're missing half the fun. We'll take you behind the scenes with photos and live videos from the road. See what we're up to while we're out digging up great stories to tell on TV. Then watch for opportunities to share your story ideas, or just drop us a line and let us know how you're doing. Follow Expedition Texas on Facebook at Expedition Texas.
You're watching Expedition Texas.
We're in Seguin, Texas with Aaron and Jim Getty touring the Magnolia Hotel. The hotel is over a century old and plenty of stories surround this historic property. We've toured the mostly restored first floor, but now we're venturing upstairs to the largely unrestored second floor.
You are actually now entering the 10-room hotel.
This looks like a hotel.
These are actually some of the original walls of the 1850 hotel. You can actually see the slates that were built by slave labor, and the limecrete solution used for the wall.
So this was built by slave labor?
Sure was.
Wow. And what was this room here?
This is actually another room. It was a 10-room hotel, so each room would have went right next to each other. 1, 2. You can actually see the transoms in the hallway that broke it up. This is actually the communal room.
Communal room. What happened in here?
Well, we had lots of traveling salesmen that would come and stay at the Magnolia Hotel, and this is the room where they would all gather and talk about how they sold their wares today and what's the next path they should take. So it was well known for traveling salesmen.
These fixtures I know probably aren't from the 1800s, but when do you think this was all put in?
About 1920.
Early 1900s is when they put some electricity here.
Right.
Early 1900s.
So this is another one of our rooms. This is actually one of our most famous tenants. Her name was Pink Rosebud. She was a very well-known madam here in Seguin.
Oh, really?
Yes,
she was her special room, huh?
Her special room.
So why was it her room?
They gave her this room because she could actually look out this window and her home was directly across the street. So she could keep an eye on her home while working.
Working.
Easy access for the customers to come up a stairway.
Exactly.
I see. And what's through here?
So you're actually entering in a room that we call Itzy's room. This is actually the fireplace that leads above the fireplace that's just below us, which is the smoking room.
Smoking room.
The smoking room.
And was that part of the original 1840 hotel?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and you said Itzy's room. What's up with all the baby toys and crib and stroller and all that?
Well, Itzy was actually a young girl, and she passed away here, and they say that her spirit still resides, and she actually sings the Itsy Bitsy Spider songs whenever a guest comes in that she wants to entertain.
Really? Okay, awesome.
So you're actually walking in the room that we call the prisoner's room.
The prisoner's room. They house prisoners in here?
No, they actually house the prisoner's family in here.
Oh.
Whenever there was going to be a hanging, they would have the prisoners in the jail directly outside this window, and they could watch when their loved one was getting ready to be hung on the hanging tree. They would exit, go on a calaboose, ride the calaboose directly in front of the hotel. Everybody could say their goodbyes, and then they would hang them right across the street.
This room is depressing.
Yes, it is.
Well, I guess we've had a chance now to see the hotel from the bottom to the top, and it's time to head on out, but thank you guys for showing us around.
Actually, you haven't seen the bottom.
Haven't seen the bottom?
We have a basement down below. It was dug out by hand in 1855 to protect the citizens from the Indian raids.
You mean there's something dark and spooky and we haven't seen it yet? Let's go. Show me the way.
Be sure and watch your head.
This is cool. Now, what did you say? This was an Indian raid shelter, right?
Yes, it was built in the 1840s, and it was actually dug out by slave labor, and it was used whenever there was an Indian raid anywhere nearby.
My gosh. And so now, I guess, are these timbers actually part of the original?
Yes, I just think it's fascinating that you can actually see the original log cabin logs with the bark on it as well, and you can see some of the pegs that they use.
What's this bell for?
That bell was actually used during Prohibition.
What?
Speakeasy down here.
Yep.
You're kidding.
And whenever they were going to have a raid, they ring the bell and everybody hightailed it.
I love it. There's actually a lot to love about the Magnolia Hotel in Seguin. The Gettys have worked hard to restore the restored parts and to preserve the original beauty of those untouched parts of the historic structure. Down the road, there's another lost legend waiting to be discovered, and on Expedition Texas, we're going to find it.